here we go. Welcome everyone to the Tushaar Show. We have Andrea here, streaming from Atlanta, Georgia.
Hey!
And this is going to be one amazing podcast. So, I have been connecting with Andrea for the last week. And we've set this day, and I'm so glad we could make it happen. Andrea, welcome to the Good Vibes community.
Thank you.
And the show's name has recently been shifted from the Good Vibes to the Tushaar Show. I'm completing 50 episodes of the Good Vibes, and then I'll be starting another podcast called the Tushaar Show. So this is actually one of the first podcasts for the Tushaar Show, which I'm planning or trying to launch in January, but it may get delayed. And you're my third international guest. Congratulations!
Ah, cool. All
yes.
right.
And you're my first guest from USA.
Great.
A very warm welcome from me and my audience, and I'd like to take a few minutes to introduce you to my guests. So, Andrea is from Atlanta, Georgia, like I told you. When I asked her about her hobbies and what she loves to do, she told me she loves to do outdoor things like hiking, backpacking, rock climbing, running, and before the podcast, I also said hitchhiking. And she corrected me and she said, hitchhiking is something else. Hitchhiking is when you show your thumb and try to get in other people's cars to reach another destination, which I thought was pretty cool. So, Andrea's not currently a hitchhiker. She's going to be a hitchhiker on her next trail for the experience. And she lives in a house with two roommates and her dog called Kaifa, which is not correctly pronounced in German, but it means pine. Right. She works in a corporate company in a 9-to-5 job, but is really passionate about her trailing and blog. So she's trying to generate revenue there so that she can hike full time and spread awareness about the various trails around her country. So, very interesting description, Andrea. Welcome again. And tell me how all of this started. Tell the audience where this passion of yours came to light, or how did you like the outdoor activities? Where did that emerge from within you?
That's a good question. I've been getting that a lot recently.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that my love for doing things outdoors probably started when I was little, just because from whenever my memory started, when I was a few years old, we always, as a family, went tent camping at local state parks each year. And we would meet up with a few different families. It was the same families every year, and we would just go there for, I don't actually know how long. To me, it seemed like at least a week. It might have just been a weekend.
Okay.
Time's kind of relative when you're that young.
Right.
But yeah, we would go hiking. We would go boating and water skiing out on the lake each day. We would be swinging from vines, and we would make homemade ice cream at night around the campfire.
Wow.
So it was just fun from the very beginning, and I just kind of kept that with me. And now that I'm in an area in Georgia where there's mountains that are easily accessible, then I just kind of advanced that car camping to backpacking. So now I like to carry everything on my back and then go hike in the woods for a bit and then set up camp in the middle of nowhere.
Awesome. So, 3 quick questions. I know we discussed before the podcast, but then when these questions come up, I just want to know them. So I'll just state all the 3 questions to you quickly. The first is homemade ice cream? Question mark, exclamation mark. The second is about, I think it's about, I forgot the second question. The third question is, do you like to carry all that on your back? Does it become heavy? I think answer the two questions, yeah.
Okay, so first question, homemade ice cream, question mark, question mark. Yes, it is good. So you can find them I guess online, but it's some sort of barrel, for lack of a word. And then ours had an electric motor to it, and you would pour, I think we'd pour milk in, there's some sort of mixture we'd pour in, and then ours was always fruit flavored, so we would throw in fresh strawberries or fresh bananas, and then you put that into a container that you put in this barrel bucket thing, and then around the container you put salt, like road melting salt, and ice.
Okay.
And then you turn the motor on and it starts moving stuff around, and then at the end there's magically ice cream.
Okay. Is it an electric thing? So you carried a generator with you?
Yeah. So it would be an electric thing.
Okay.
Yeah, and I remember them making noise, but other than that, yeah, I don't even know how long it would take. Like, time was kind of relative when I was little.
Right.
Yeah, we'd put all the stuff in, and then however long later, we got ice cream.
So you would have a generator, something. Oh, you don't know, or you're guessing there was a generator.
It was some sort of electric thing. So we either had a generator with us, or we would plug it into the car battery, something like that.
Okay.
Something that created electricity with us.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the second question, how is the change from putting everything on your car to now putting everything on your bag, in your bag?
Yeah. So it's different. The car camping stuff, it's bigger and it's heavier, which is fine because you're just taking it from the back of your car to a tent site that's 10 feet away and setting it up.
Right.
And because of that, you can also bring a lot more stuff like camp chairs and s'more sticks and coolers full of food. You don't want to do that when you're backpacking because you're going to have to lug all that through the trails. So backpacking, it's a lot more definitely weight conscious. Every weight counts when you're carrying it on your back. And space conscious, so you don't have to carry a humongous backpack with you. And the good thing about it, like you have more freedom when you're backpacking versus car camping, because you're not set to a designated camping spot. You can stop earlier on the trail, you can stop later on the trail, you can stop at an area with a really good view, somewhere directly next to the lake. It's kind of up to you.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
In the sense you can go more remote? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, you can definitely go more remote backpacking.
Okay.
And the scenery, I've also noticed through a few of the trips I've done, the scenery when you backpack tends to be the most beautiful because you earn it more because you work harder to get there.
Yes.
Yeah. And also the scenery that you have, because sometimes views or mountains take days to get to. So there's a lot less people there. So it's like you're there in nature by yourself sometimes. And
Understood.
It's just a great feeling to have.
Understood. It's like you see nature and you feel I'm not a part of nature, but at that moment you are with nature, in the sense you kind of see both sides of the, like, I am nature right now. You're one with nature. At the same time, you can distinguish yourself from nature. So it's interesting in that level.
Yeah, and it also, I've noticed that it creates a simplicity in life because you don't have the space or the ability to carry everything that you want. You only carry the stuff that you need. And because of that, there's a lot less distractions
Okay.
out there so you can live in the moment a little bit better.
Right, right. So mentally you're preparing yourself to be minimalistic and carry what you need.
Yes, exactly.
It's not let me just dump this in also, like let me just dump this in also.
Yeah, because
You
everything
tend to
you dump,
avoid that.
you're
Yeah.
going to carry it. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And I'd like to take this analogy to our daily life, in the sense we can see it. We go through our days and we just carry the expectations of so many people just tugging along us, like we have this big car. Like, okay, let's just put our neighbors' expectations in it. Let's put our parents' expectations in it. Our teachers, like, just put it along. We'll reach the campsite and see what to do with it. But in actuality, you're a solo traveler with just a backpack, and you have to deal with your own things.
Yeah, I love that analogy. That's great.
So you really don't need so many things. You can just stick to what you need and walk that path. And like you said, you feel like you earn and you deserve the beauty or the view once you reach the view spot. When you have
Yeah.
what you carried.
And you got there by yourself with your own power. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. What a beginning to this podcast. Okay, Andrea, you told me your next big goal, your next big trail in mind. Also, just I forgot to mention in the introduction that you signed up for a half marathon, so that's your short-term goal. That's like, congratulations for that. You have these goals going on. But you told me that in the trail wise, your long-term goal was to trail the Alpination. Have I pronounced it right?
The Appalachian Trail.
Appalachian.
Yeah, it's a long word, and it took me like a year to figure out how to spell this word.
Okay.
Yeah.
Apple. Is it Apple?
Appalachian.
App? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Appalachian.
Appalachian.
I think I got that right.
Yeah. Appalachian Trail, which is 2,100 miles, which comes around to 3,300 kilometers, 3,300 kilometers. Friends, this is not a small trail. This is like between Chennai and Ahmedabad, for those of you who are in India. Okay. 3,000 kilometers is a long stretch. Do you know India is 6,000 kilometers top to down?
Okay.
So you're essentially like walking half our country's length.
Yeah, I'm going halfway.
Yeah. I'm still I'm still not sure about whether if told the details right about the country's length, because last I studied geography was in 9th standard. I read these details in 9th, so I may be confusing the length to the width, something like that. But either way, you're covering a long distance. Right. And this is not something everyone would take up. So even though we discussed we are going to go from topic A to B to C, let's switch around things and go from topic C to B to A. What's your mindset? Why have you chosen to do something like this?
My mindset for doing the Appalachian Trail. First off, most people think you're crazy if you mention it, because it is 3,300 kilometers, which takes about 5 months to hike.
Yes.
My mindset is, it came about originally from completing my hike last year of the John Muir Trail, which is 220 miles. Not sure what that translates to kilometers. But it took 20 days, and at the end of it, I experienced what's known as post-trail depression in the hiker community. And post-trail depression is something that you experience, not everyone does, but a lot of people do after you come back from a long-distance trail. And it's kind of the longing to be back out on the trail where life is simpler, and it's how I experienced it. It was a frustration of society, a lot of things with society and my job, and just how people get upset about so many things that in reality don't really impact much. So there's so many times people get upset about traffic. And traffic's something that we do to ourselves. Right. So you could choose to walk or bike to work, or you can choose to have a job closer to your home so your drive isn't as far if you are driving, or you could have a schedule where you travel on non-rush hour periods. But so many people just travel during rush hour for miles and miles and miles because it's what's considered normal. And coming back, I started questioning, well, like, why do we do all this stuff? And from that, it kind of morphed into me saying, well, the Appalachian Trail, I kind of consider it to be my home trail because I started backpacking once I moved to Georgia, and the Appalachian Trail goes from Georgia to Maine in the U.S., so it starts close to where I live. So I consider it to be my home trail. And I had such a great time on my 20-day hike of the John Muir Trail last year that at the end of it, I was like, you know what, I think I might be able to do this for 5 months. So it kind of came about, the original thinking kind of came about from there.
So it came around like it's also a part of it was that you really enjoyed the 20-day trek, the 20-day trail that you did for 220 kilometers or 220 miles, and then you saw the difference, or you kind of felt the difference post the trail, and you faced something called post-trail depression. And I read a blog about that in your blogs, which is Farawayhorizons. So I read this blog, and you had written how one of your co-workers, you were in a lunch meeting, and all your co-workers were talking about how a producer of a particular product has stopped producing that, and that business will go down for that product, and sales will go down, or the market will dip, and there's a lot of tension in everyone's faces. And you were just wondering that all this doesn't matter, in the sense you had a larger perspective at that moment.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was sitting there, it was a lunch meeting, so I was eating my food, and it was a new job that I had just moved into, so I was still trying to figure out what all was going on and how it worked. And I was sitting there, this was a week or two after I got back from the trail, and they were getting so personally upset about how this impact to the supplier was changing the market. And I was sitting there, I'm like, the market's going to even out. Eventually it'll right itself. It always happens.
Right.
And nothing that we can personally do is going to change the fate of the supplier. And in reality, getting upset about this doesn't significantly impact our lives in the long run. So I was watching it all happen. I'm just like, why? Why are you so upset about this stuff?
Do you think this happened because of the trail? And why?
Yes, I think so. Because beforehand, like I said, stuff is just kind of normalized. And people go through their lives following the normal path that society lays out for them. So you go graduate your primary school, your high school, you go to college or university, and then you kind of get your job, and then you work until your retirement age, then you retire.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so after the trail, I started questioning, well, why do we have to do it like that? Like, who says that I have to work the whole time? Who says that I can't take 5 months off to go hike a trail or go travel the world? Or who says I can't change my career path midway to go from a business person to a blogger?
Mm-hmm.
Why not?
Why not? Exactly. You said when you were on that trail, you rethought things. And you said, why not take a 5-month vacation? I mean, to someone who didn't get that perspective, they'd be like, are you out of your mind? 5 months is equal to 5 months of earnable salary. In the sense, you get 5 months of salary which you're forsaking for this trail. And what are you getting in return? I mean, someone from the outside can't see any direct benefit of losing his salary. But at the same time, I mean, I know, in the sense, I could kind of imagine the list of benefits that you're getting, but I want to hear it from you.
Yeah. So for me, it's more about the experiences that you have. Mm-hmm. And I could work my whole life after graduating uni to retirement. Mm-hmm. And that would be fine. That's what a lot of people do, but it doesn't interest me, because I want to be able to experience things, experience the world, experience life while I'm young, because you never know where you're going to be if you're going to make it to retirement. There's nothing guaranteed, so why not do it now?
Right.
So it's kind of you got to live life while you can.
Right. And at the same time, you're doing something that you like doing.
Yes. Yeah, it's just hiking for 5 months definitely isn't for everyone, mm-hmm. but I think I would enjoy it.
Right.
So why not go for it?
Right. And could you throw some light on the mindset of completing such a journey?
Yeah, so it's for the amount of people that start out on the Appalachian Trail, mm-hmm. it's only 20 to 25% of people that actually make it the whole way. And that could be because of injuries, it could be because of life challenges, off trail or on trail. There's all sorts of situations that play into a journey this long, into successfully being able to complete it or not complete it. Mm-hmm. And what a lot of people don't realize, and I didn't realize it the first time that I did a longer trail, is the mental game mm-hmm. that plays into this situation. It's regardless really of your physical ability, you can get into hiking shape, you can get into trail shape. Mm-hmm. You start slower and then you add mileage as you go. Mm-hmm. But it's a huge mental challenge to be out there doing the same thing day after day. You don't necessarily always have self-service depending on where you are on the trail, so you can't always call home or call friends or look on the internet to pass time. It's really you being there in the moment with the other people you meet along the way. And yeah, it's a huge mental game, and I was not prepared for that. The first trail I hiked, which was a 100-mile trail called the Wonderland Trail. Mm-hmm. And so when I did the John Muir Trail last year, I was much more mentally prepared mm-hmm. because I knew what to expect, so my mental game was there. So it's improving each time mm-hmm. now that I'm aware of it. But yeah, the mental game is just unreal.
Got it. And do you, two questions again, two quick questions. Do you get bored? I mean, do you get bored doing, like, in the middle of the trail, do you wish I just wasn't here sometimes? And the second is, do you meditate on your trail sometimes?
So for getting bored, yes, absolutely. You do. There are times where I'm just like, even when I've just been on a weekend, a Friday through Sunday trip, where I'm like, why am I doing this? I could be at home watching Netflix right now.
Okay.
But yeah, and that goes into the mental game of it, where there's some days where the rain's just pounding on you all day, and you haven't seen the sun, and it's cold and windy and miserable. But then there's days where the weather's beautiful, you just got to the top of a mountain and you're looking at the scenery, and for me, those good days outweigh the bad days that you do have.
Mm-hmm.
And your second question, remind me because I forget.
The second question is, do you meditate on your way sometimes?
So I guess, so I haven't actually figured out how to meditate.
Okay.
That's probably something that I could do to just de-stress in general, but I haven't actually actively participated in meditation, but there are times where I've just been in an area and I just close my eyes and I listen to the birds and I feel the wind and I just breathe slowly to just enjoy it, to try and let things go that I'm stressing out about.
Right.
So, somewhat yes, a little, but mostly no, I guess.
What are the kind of birds you see there?
Oh gosh, I don't even, unless it's a bluebird or a cardinal, which are very, I don't know what birds they are.
Okay. Cool. Now, Andrea, the second set of questions I wanted to ask you were from the things that you think about on your trail. In the sense, when you're all alone for 5 months, it's like reliving your entire life again. In the sense, you don't have the daily commotions, the everyday people asking you things, or the daily chit chats, or your work, or nothing is of routine. You're just walking, sleeping, eating, perhaps seeing the view, and most of the time you're just tugging along. And I mean, even in a regular day, I'm rethinking things so many times, or in the sense, some incidents which are recent or which have impacted me in some way, I feel have impacted me in some way. I tend to go over that again. In the sense, it happens until I realize, okay, I'm thinking about it or I'm aware about it. But in a 5-month trail, it's like you just go back to incidents. It's like the mind takes you on this journey, or maybe in the future, or maybe in the past. What's your journey like in the trail? What do you think about? Is it like going through your life again, or some moments again?
Yeah. So for this trail, it'll be really interesting to see where my mind goes for that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I thought was going to happen when I started was I was thinking, I'm going to go hike this trail, and at the end of it, I'm going to have my life figured out. I'm going to know exactly what I need to do.
Okay.
Yeah, so much time to think about and figure it out, right? So I came back from the trail, and I was more confused than when I left.
Okay.
So that didn't work at all.
Okay.
And like you said, you do kind of sit on some situations, and you do keep running through that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I try to do is what I like to do, I should say, is I like to just tone that stuff out and just focus on watching my feet take one step after the other on the trail. I like looking at the scenery as we pass, looking at the mountains, the waterfalls, the trees. I try to just fade everything else out if I can, for those moments at least. But then something that kept coming into my mind when I was on the trail was food.
Okay.
The food that I didn't have in my backpack. So I was thinking about ice cream and cookies and pizza and how good it would be to be able to eat that stuff right now. So that was, yeah, food, and then my first my first meal off the trail, thinking about that and what I was going to have for it and how great it was going to be. And it was great, by the way. But yeah, I originally thought that I was just going to have my life figured out, and I did not get there. But that's okay, because life always changes, right? So you just kind of got to take it as it comes each day.
Right. It's actually very well said, in the sense, for my listeners, when you're overthinking things, I had one friend who asked me once or twice, how do you deal with overthinking? And I found one good perspective from what you said, in the sense, when you did tend to go back to some particular memories or incidents, you started watching your feet, or you started toning down that. So it is possible to tone down those incidents once you're aware of it. And
yes.
Another kind of, do you use Photoshop?
So I haven't figured that out yet.
You haven't
I need
figured?
to.
Okay. You must have used WordPress.
For photo editing?
No, for making your website.
Oh, yeah, I use WordPress.
Yes. And in WordPress, in the background and the background overlay, there's this option of opacity. Do you know that? Have you tried that?
Yes, I think I have a little bit of that. Yeah.
So it's more like when you're walking and such an incident comes, it's like decreasing the opacity of that.
Yes.
And increasing the opacity of what you want to see.
Right. Yeah, it's channeling your mind and your thoughts kind of go a different route.
Right. And all this, these are like visualizations. I read this in a book called Tony Robbins, by Tony Robbins. Have you heard of him?
I have.
Yes. And in that he says that you can make these mind, like you can play it like a video editor. You can make your mind work like a video editor. In the sense, you can cut the scenes you don't want. You can zoom into the scenes you want with the music that you like to give you the feeling again. And he told a couple of things, and I mean, it works, in the sense, if we use this particular opacity setting, let's say we use the opacity setting to decrease overthinking, it can work, in the sense, when you realize, oh, I'm going back to the same situation and incident again, I can just turn the slider down to minimum opacity, 0, and then turn what I want to see and then move ahead. Because it's really no point pondering about what has happened.
I like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Tone down the bad stuff, tone up the good stuff.
Yes,
absolutely.
Absolutely. Awesome. So that those are the things that you think along the way. Of course, food is something like you crave it when you don't have it. One of those things. You deal with that too the same way? Just kind of keep walking along and...
Oh, how I deal with the food? Oh, I keep thinking about that stuff.
Okay.
I'm always wanders back to the food.
Okay. Cool. Maybe you should try some other thing for food. I don't know. Maybe you should, I don't know, get creative and try something along your next trip and blog about it. What you did about when you felt the food craving. That could be a good blog post.
Yeah. I can list all the food that I think about while I'm out there.
Getting more personal with the audience about what you really think about during the trail.
Yeah, I like that.
Cool. And the last thing I want to talk about is patience. How do you deal with patience? What's your perspective on patience, firstly?
Patience. Sometimes I have it, sometimes I don't. It depends on what the situation is.
Mm-hmm.
So if I just got off the trail and I've been thinking about ice cream for the past 20 days, I'm going to want ice cream as fast as I can get it. But for patience, yeah, it's sometimes I can be super patient, and sometimes I can be very impatient. So it really depends. Yeah.
Right. I think I've been undergoing something very similar in the sense, for the launch of my podcast, I want to see progress, in the sense, progress to my standard. Like, just yesterday I did 2 drawings in a day. I completed 2 GIFs in a day. And so I set myself up for a very big goal then. I said, okay, because I felt so accomplished and happy, I said, okay, I'm going to do this animated series with 6 GIFs, one after the other. And I have been stuck with 1 drawing for 2 days and it's not completed. So tomorrow will be the 3rd day. So it's obviously not going as fast as I expected. And even though it is progress, it's like it kind of demoralizes me, or it's a funny feeling, in the sense, it's like I want it, I didn't get it. It's that child in me which says, no, I want it now. Like instant gratification in my work. But at the same time, I know to be a drummer, I want to learn and master every small thing that my teacher is teaching me. So I've been with one beat for, I think, 4 months, and I haven't progressed. And that hasn't demoralized me one bit, in the sense I know that just practicing that beat is making me an overall better drummer in the long term. In the sense, somewhere along the line, it'll help me grab one more beat of a similar type very fast, rather than trying to just move on to the next lesson and have this beat half-baked.
Yeah, I'm experiencing a bit of that too.
Right?
Because for my blog, I'm wanting to see it quickly. Mm-hmm. And like this past week, for example, along with your gifts, I had a list of tasks for my blog that I want to complete. Mm-hmm. And it's tough because it's juggling school or a career with social life, with what I call life errands, like having to go to the grocery store and get food, with adding on top of all that stuff, which keeps you busy in general, is the blog or the podcasting or whatever you're trying to achieve. And it's hard. So this list that I had for this week, I completed maybe a third of those things that I had to do, but I still worked a lot of time on it. So it's tough because I want it to be done now, and I want it to be ready to go, to be huge, but you can't rush through these things.
Right.
And your work, your drawings, your writing, it's going to be bad.
Right.
So
right, exactly.
It's a balancing act to figure it all out, to make time for it, to make it all good. But then so that's the stuff that I want to be done. I want that instant type of gratification. I want it to happen quickly.
Right.
But then so the half marathon that you mentioned, I'm going to be running, I'm training for that now, and my workout for my half marathon from yesterday didn't go very good. I had to stop part through and take a break a bit, do some walking, which I didn't want to do. But that's kind of, for me, like your drumming, where, you know what, it's okay, because I didn't complete it as I wanted to, but I still hit the mileage that I needed to do, just not how I wanted to do it, and it'll still help me in the long run. Be more prepared for the race.
Right. I guess trying to get the elements of where it's working into where it's not working is the toughest challenge.
Yes, it is. And it's like I said, it's all a balancing act.
Right. And go on.
Each day and each week is a balancing act. It's never going to be the same.
Right.
So you just got to figure it out. Yeah.
Right. And I saw the last live Q&A by Nate and
Nate Buchan.
Nate Buchan and what's his girlfriend's name?
Oh,
I forget.
I'm blanking right now.
Nate and okay, let's just say Nate because I remember only Nate saying this. Nate was saying in his last live Q&A, for context for the listeners, this is a course called Wired Creatives, where they teach us how to start a blog online and how to develop an online community. And that's how we have networked through the Wired Creative Facebook group. And so Nate was saying in his live webinar that he too he didn't like the pain process. He called it pain in the sense what you're going through probably, like the blogging or maybe you're talking about a list of life errands, but he called his pain process like getting the blog done, getting the blog published, or I would call my pain process like getting my website done, everything uploaded and put up on the web. The fun process is doing this, but the pain process, Nate said that he hated it. He didn't like it at all. But what he said later is that he learned the most because of the pain. He grew the most because of the pain. And to that, I am adding that the fun process is more fun because of the pain.
Yes, because you earned it more.
Yes.
Yeah, so you can cherish the fun more than if it just kind of came to you, as if it were handed to you.
Yeah.
You actually had to, yeah, I agree with that.
At the same time, I feel like screaming, I just feel like screaming in frustration when I'm in the midst of that process.
Yes, I mean, to get my website up, it took me like at least 4 months of working heavily on it, okay. And on top of all the other life stuff, of course, but it was just like, I thought that I would have it up in like 2 weeks.
Right.
And, yeah, not the case at all. So it's a process.
And like we've yet to go through the process of growing and getting our community and getting our readers and monetizing. And I mean, all the other things we want to do with the blog. I mean, the next steps.
Yeah.
And
I think of it as a journey because you should never really stop. There's always going to be something else to improve on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like we could have both launched our websites and just said, okay, we're good.
Right.
But there's so much more that we can do with it that it's always, I think, we're always going to be going through the pain process. It'll be different pain processes.
Right. Andrea, by now, I think you would have guessed and got the feel that I love analogies.
Yes.
So I would like you to make this blog process, this podcasting process, as an analogy with your trekking and tell it to our audience.
Oh, let's see. I would say I'm going to steal from something that I said earlier, where putting the work in and doing it yourself. So hiking up this trail, hiking up this mountain makes the view at the top when you see scenery that you've been hiking miles to get to, the big mountain expanse that you now see, which is kind of like the success and having little steps along the way where you get higher and higher up the mountain to reaching that view that you want.
Right.
I'm going to go with that one.
Right. And what about fighting the storms and the chilly winds and those nights where there's only rain and only rain? What would that be? What would how like the mindset and how you stay strong in that tent, like the analogy and the trek and blogging, like get that together.
Yeah. You know, it can't rain forever. It can't be bad forever. So you're gonna
loved it.
Yeah, you
loved it.
You gotta stick it out, and then the next day you'll get to summit that mountain.
That was one beautiful sentence. I'm going to make this a quote as an Instagram quote for my page and say Andrea said this. It can't rain forever.
Yes.
Awesome. It's been a really, really, really good podcast. Like, we've covered very insightful things. I'd like to talk about your blog. Why don't you tell my audience about your blog for 2 minutes?
Yeah. So my blog is called Farawayhorizons, and it launched on August 18th this past year, 2018. Because that was actually the trail anniversary of when I started hiking the John Muir Trail last year, which is kind of when this whole process ultimately began of me getting into blogging and figuring this stuff out. And what Farawayhorizons is about is it's storytelling and adventure. So it's using stories to share adventures, bring people into adventures, and inspire others to have more experiences outside for whatever that means to you, whether it's hiking, going on a day hike, or going on a multi-night backpacking trip, or maybe it's rock climbing or kayaking, whatever you're interested or you want to try. It's the goal is to inspire you to go out there and do it. Because unless you go out and do things and really try it and experience the world, you're going to be missing it, and you won't realize what all there is.
Right.
So it's the blog, then there's a bunch of pictures on Instagram and on Facebook, both under the name Farawayhorizons, and it's just trying to get people outside.
Wow. Thank you for starting such a blog. I'm sure it'll inspire a lot of people to I was going to say hitchhike, to trail.
Maybe hitchhiking.
Yeah, maybe hitchhiking too. But it's really nice to see people coming out and sharing their passions with the world, because that's one big way in which it makes other people realize they have passions too, and they too can open up to the world, and the world is a safe space.
Yeah, absolutely. And whatever your passion is, pursue it. Make time for it.
Make time for it. Awesome. And like I myself had a lot of questions for you, in the sense, like one small question: is the John Muir trail named after John Mayer, the singer?
No, so it's John. They sound similar. It's John is actually in the U.S. one of the founders of our national parks.
Oh,
so he's a big I'll call him a conservationist figure.
Okay. It's John, John Mayer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, very similar to John Muir, the singer.
Okay. And like I have other questions, like, what do you do when you're injured on the trail? By, like, God forbid, but if you get injured on the trail and you're solo traveling with a heavy backpack, what do you do?
Yeah.
So
that's a good question. If it is an injury that you can possibly hike out with, so if it's like maybe you broke your arm, which is not fun, but you can still hike out to the closest town, you would do that.
Okay.
But if it's an injury where you can't hike out, maybe you break your leg and you're too far away from a town to get there, or it's a life or death situation, they have one of the pieces of equipment that people often carry is an emergency beacon, and you activate the beacon and it will signal to a search and rescue team, and then they'll be sent out to come find you. But that is really for a life or death situation, because that is quite the logistics to get a search and rescue team out, and it is quite the expense. So if you can and are able to, then you hike out.
Understood. So I have asked you a lot of questions even before the podcast. I'm just wondering, where can my audience connect with you to ask you more questions, because it's pretty intriguing. In the sense, I've got a basic sense of how a hike goes. Like, I'm just telling the audience, I've asked her like how to deal with a black bear if she encounters one, and how to deal with a grizzly bear. And these are questions I would like you to go and find out from her blog, because somewhere down the line you're going to be blogging about things like this.
Yeah,
but
I will be.
I mean, even queries and questions from people could be an inspiration from a blog. So how do my listeners, how do the listeners of this podcast, or whoever listens to this podcast, get to you to ask these questions? Do you have a Q&A session in your blog, in your website?
I don't have a frequently asked questions section yet, but that's definitely something I can add in the future if there seems to be the same type of questions coming. But on my blog website, which is farawayhorizons.com, there's a contact page. So you can send me an email directly through there. You can also reach out, send me a message through Instagram, the Faraway Horizons Instagram page, or the Faraway Horizons Facebook page. And really, I would love to hear from everyone. So let me know, send your questions, let me know what you think, give me ideas if you want to hear a post about something. Yeah, absolutely reach out.
Yes, and Andrea is very, very reachable, in the sense, the fact that we were able to connect so easily just via Instagram and no formal emails is a very big thing to make this podcast possible. I'm so happy, Andrea, that this podcast was a success and that you were able to take out your valuable time for our listeners. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And this applies to all my guests anytime they want to feature again on my podcast, because they have an exciting story to share and they feel it'll help the community. Just need to reach out to me and we'll schedule one more podcast and we'll talk about what you learned, because there's so much more to life and we can always get back on from where you left and see, okay, how we developed, how we grown, what new mindsets and perspectives. And I would love to hear from you after the Appalachian Trail.
Absolutely. We can definitely reconnect then.
Yes. I'm sure you'll be posting blogs, and I'll go through them, and then after that, after reading your experiences, we can definitely do another podcast.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So I'll just hit the stop to the record button.
Okay.
You just stay online for a few more seconds.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. See you, my friends, and meet you until next time.